Hi, let's go ahead and build a chatbot using the SAP Conversational AI. So previously, it was known as Cast AI. After acquiring this product in January, SAP has renamed it as an SAP Conversational AI, and that's how we call it. So chatbots has becoming quite popular, and company wants to use these chatbots in order to automate their business process, like after sales or customer service and so on. So let's take a step into learning how we are going to build a chatbot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this tutorial what SAP has given in order to begin our learning with building the chatbot. So as a beginner, I am learning how to build this chatbot, and I'm just going to share my knowledge on how we are going to build the chatbot. So for those who already have an account, they can just log into the recast AI, or if you don't have an account, you can just go to the website recast.ai, and here you'll be finding this login or sign up page. You can just sign up by providing your email ID, or if you already have a GitHub account, you can just log in with your GitHub account. So once you have logged in with your GitHub account, you'll be landing on this particular page where you can just go ahead and start developing your chatbots. So what we will do is, based on the instructions from the tutorial, we will go ahead and build our chatbots, and we will learn some of these things. So to build a chatbot, I'm just going to click on this new bot, and when you're going to build a new bot, it comes up with a set of predefined skills, which means some of the functionalities are readily available, and you can just make use of this functionality when you're building your bot, so that you don't have to necessarily do each and everything by yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the skill called as a greeting, and I'm going to add it to my chatbot that I'm going to create. Then I'm just going to provide a name to the chatbot. So let's say, for example, we will say it as a joke bot number two, and I just give a description, and then just choose a topic of what this chatbot is about. So you can choose a maximum of up to 6 topics. So I'm just going to choose a topic. So let's call it as fun. So I just choose a topic category for this, and then we will let it be the default language as English. And then in the data policy, as of now, we could not create a chatbot with the help due to the restriction that we could not gather the personal information or health related information of a person. So we'll just make it as a personal chatbot, and we are not going to collect any information from the user in this bot. So it's not going to harm the user in any way. So we'll just set this particular bot as a uh, non-vulnerable, and then you set the visibility for the chatbot. So I have already created a chatbot which I have set it to public. So I could not make the other bots that I create in a public state. So I'm just going to choose a private. Later on you can just remove the chatbot which is previously public, and then you can just change the settings of the bot. So I have just given this information. I wanted to start up with a set of predefined skills for my bot, and then we specified the topic and the data policy. We said the visibility of the chatbot, and then we go ahead and create a chatbot. So what this does is, this is going to create a chatbot for us, and it's generally going to be done in 5 different steps. So you have this train, build, code, connect, and monitor. So these are going to be the 5 steps in the process of development of your chatbot. So first, we will start with the train, where you're going to specify the intent. So intent, it's like a a box of expressions. Say for example, if I say how are you or how you doing, they are going to represent the same thing. So when user is going to say one of these words to the chatbot, I need to identify what he is trying to say. So whatever is the different way of expression of saying a particular thing. Say for example, I can question a chatbot like, are you a bot? uh, or I could make a question to the chatbot that, am I talking to a person or am I talking to a machine? So irrespective of the different wordings that we use, we are going to ask the same thing to the chatbot, that whether you are a robot. So the different types in which you express the same content, you group all of them in into a box of expression, what you call it as an intent. So now that I have choose the greetings skill from the first screen while creating the chatbot, I got this two intent which is readily available for me. You see this greeting called greetings, sorry, you see this intent called greetings, and you see this intent called goodbye. So if you click on this greetings intent, you could see that it's just nothing but a different ways in which user will greet the chatbot by saying hello or hey or one of these different words that exist like hi bot or hey bot or hello there or hi there, good morning, hi, just hi. So you basically start your conversation with any of these words with the chatbot, and the chatbot it's going to identify that intent as a greeting, which means when one of these words comes up, the chatbot identifies that okay, he is greeting us. So what we should do according to the greeting, like what is the action that is going to be. Likewise, you have a look at this goodbye intent, and this is just going to have a collection of words that says bye or talk to you soon, see you later, something like that. So whatever is the expression in which you are going to say like okay, I'm done with the conversation, I wanted to move out. So you are going just going to greet him back like okay, bye, thanks, something like that. So whenever you're going to have one of these words which is going to match, then the browser is going to, sorry, the chatbot is going to understand that okay, you are saying you're trying to say a goodbye to the system. So we create an intent. It's like a part of your brain. Like if I'm going to say hi to you, your brain is going to immediately stimulate that okay, he is saying hi to me, I have to respond back. So likewise, here we are going to create an intent which is going to form the brain of the chatbot, where it identifies what has to be done, what is the intent of the customer. So we have a two intent which is created by default, and not necessarily all of the intent has to be created by ourselves. So this is a collaborative environment, and most of the content uh, you could just take it from the group which is available. So you can just search for the community, you can just search if there are some predefined intent which is already available, and if you could make use of it, and you can just use it in your um, chatbot. Let's say for example, if I'm going to search for an intent called as a joke, and if somebody has already created it, it's going to pop up for me, and I can just make use of that intent, and whatever the expression that is built inside those intent, my chatbot will respond to those intents. Say for example, I'm going to make use of this intent as joke. So I'll just poke this into my project, and now you see that this intent which is created by somebody is readily available within my chatbot, and what are the different things that this intent is going to offer for us. So if you just open this particular intent here, you could see a different expression of asking a joke, like tell me a joke, or a joke please, I want a joke, or tell me something funny, something like that. So in order to ask the joke to the chatbot, we have like a different set of expressions which is available over here, and somebody has already created this intent which we have forked into our um, chatbot. Now if you wanted to add more intents which is not available, then you can just go ahead and create the intent on your own. So if I say create, it's going to pop up where I'm going to create a couple of intent. The first intent is going to be laugh. That is the when the user is going to ask for a joke, the chatbot replies with a joke, and whether the user is happy with the joke or he sees that that joke is awful. So I'm going to create an intent called as a laugh, which has to contain the expression that the user is saying that okay, I'm happy with this reply. So I'm happy with this joke. So I just create an intent. So this intent is being created by us, and we are just going to add the expression to it. So now let's say when I'm communicating with a chatbot, and the chatbot tells me that tells me a joke, and I'm happy with that joke, so I'm just going to appreciate it like thanks, it was a good one, or it was awesome, and something like that. So you just go ahead and add your own expressions, which has to be sent as a reply, which is sent as a reply from the end user. We're just going to identify that, and we are going to respond to that. So let's say, for example, if the user is going to say awesome, then I'm going to consider that the user is happy with this joke and the laugh intent will be triggered. So I'm just going to add some similar something like that's nice, one, great. So you add different expressions, the way of you put yourself in the shoes of an end user and see like when you give him a reply, what his possible answer would be back to you, what would his further queries. You just build the expression on top of that. So based on the expression that you have given, the chatbot engine also suggests you some of the intent. Say for example, you see some of this intent expression that is provided. So I'm just going to choose all of this for my logs. So let's say I just choose some of it, not all of them. So now if the user is going to say like incredible or awesome or great, then I'm going to consider that okay, he is happy with the joke and my laugh intent would be triggered. So I add this expressions. Now based on this expression, the system derives the pronoun or the number, and it also calculate the weightage of your expression based on that. So you see as a good one. So it calculates that there is a number value one, which means it's representing a one value, something like that, right? So we'll get into the more details of it later on. So now I'm just going to add one more intent, that is when the user is not happy about the chatbot, chatbot's reply. So I'm just going to click on create, and I'm going to add an intent called as a lame when user is not happy with the joke. So I just created an intent, and within this intent I'm just going to add some of the different ways of giving the expressions. Let's say for example, it's awful, or it's terrible joke. Then based on the suggestion, I just choose some of the other expressions. So when the user is going to reply in any one of this, then I'm going to consider that this is a lame expression. So we have created a couple of intents. We have forked an intent which is already available. Then from the template, we had a couple of intent um, which which is from the greeting skills, says hi and bye to the end user. So now let's test our intent. Let's have a look at like when I'm going to type in a different words, how the framework is going to evaluate this. So to test it, in the right hand side you see this test option. You just click on it, and now let's say for example, if I'm going to type a sentence like hi, then you could see that it is evaluating your expression. The user has said hi, and it has identified the intent as greeting, which means I said hi, which means I'm trying to greet the chatbot. So the chatbot understood that I'm trying to greet it, and what should be done according to that, we will be defining it in the next step. Or let's say, for example, if I say bye, then the intent that is identified is goodbye. Or if I'm going to say, for example, tell me a joke, which is one of the expression available in the ask joke intent, then it is going to say that user is referring to this, trying to reach out to this intent ask joke, and it is evaluating the expression over here. Now, if I'm going to say like awesome, then it is going to identify my intent that love. Or if I'm going to say like bad or terrible, then it is going to identify that okay, this is the intent that the user is deriving at. So based on the expressions that we define in the intent, we first identify what the user is trying to communicate. Then on top of that, we build our further actions. So in the first step, we have just created our own intent, and the intent contains a box of expressions, basically a different ways of saying a thing. So we just created an intent. Then let's go ahead and build our skills for the bot. So this is going to be the second step where we are going to create the skills. So now that we have chose this greeting skill in the first step of creating our chatbot, a skill is already available to you. So to have a look at the skill, you're going to click on this link, and this is going to take you to the skill section. So you just have a readme document where you just maintain a documentation of what this skill is about, and then you find three different things here: triggers, requirements, and actions. So triggers is basically nothing but when this particular skill has been triggered. So the skill is going to be triggered based on some of the intent which is already available. So if you look at this greeting skill is going to be triggered when the user expression is going to have one of the intent like greeting or a goodbye. So when one of these expression matches, then the chatbot is going to trigger this particular greetings. So when the chatbot triggers this particular skill greetings, then in the requirement section we are going to define like whether we wanted to request any more information from the chatbot. Let's say, for example, you order food from Swiggy and your food is not delivered on time. So you just go and open the chatbot, and then you just send a query to it like my order is not received. The next question the chatbot would ask you is, do you have the order number with you, so that it can just go back and check in the database why this particular order is not triggered. So if you wanted to request any information back from the user, then you're going to define that in the requirement section, and then based on this requirement. So if I'm the end user and if I'm giving the order number, then I'm going to take that order and I'm going to perform an action, and then I'm going to find out what happened, and I'm going to reply to the end user. So these are going to be the three key sections. So the trigger will define when this particular skill has to be executed. So when the skill is executed, is there any requirement that I have to get from the customer, the user first, in order to fetch the information? So if there is nothing in the requirement, then it just go ahead and does the action. So here you can see that this particular skill called as a greetings is triggered based on two conditions. Either when the user says a keyword which reaches to the conclusion, which reaches to the intent greeting. Let's say, for example, going back to this section, if I say hi, now the intent that is reached is greetings. So when the intent that is reached is greetings, now this particular skill is triggered. So when this skill is triggered, since there is no requirement, the system will directly jump onto the actions. So in the actions, it is defined that if the greetings is present, then these are going to be one of the replies like nice to meet you or hi there or hello. These are going to be one of the response that is going to come back to the end user. So I go to the chatbot, I say hi, and it's going to give me back like nice to meet you or hi there or hello. So similarly, if the intent that is reached is goodbye, then we trigger when then we define the actions like what should be responded back to the user. So this is one of the skills that comes up um, along with the template that we have chosen. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create our own skill. So I'm just going to click on this create skill button in order to create a skill. So I'm just going to name it as joke. So there are two types, business and floatings. So we'll just choose the floatings. So you can just see from the description that when it is business, it's going to be closely related to what is the purpose of your bot. So I'm just choosing a floating skill and I just click on create a skill. So a new skill has been created for me, and now I'm going to define that what this skill is all about. So when user says some query, when this particular skill has to be triggered, and when that particular skill is triggered, what should be the action that is to be executed. So I click on this and I'm going to go inside this. You can just maintain the documentation here. So I'm just going to go to this trigger and I'm going to tell the chatbot that this particular skill has to be triggered when any one of this particular intent is reached. Now let's say for example, when when the end user is going to say a keyword which is going to derive an intent as joke, then I wanted this particular skill to be triggered. For example, in the chatbot, if the user says like tell me a joke, so when the user says tell me a joke, the ask joke intent is going to be triggered. So here in the skill, I'm setting a trigger condition that when this particular intent is reached, you need to uh, trigger this particular skill. And I'm just going to add a list of conditions here. So the user asks for a joke initially. The chatbot respond with a joke, and then if the user is happy about it, let's say for example, user go and say something which derived to the intent laugh, then what should be done in that particular case? Or if the user is not happy about the joke, then what should be the response from the chatbot? So by default, it's an and condition where you define a skill based on this different conditions. Like when these are the intent that matches, you need to trigger this particular skill. So for me, I have given the condition that when any one of the intent is reached here, I wanted to trigger this particular skill called as joke. I basically do not want to get any information from the user as of now. I'm just going to go to the action and I'm going to create the message groups. So message groups are nothing but it's going to contain the set of messages that you're going to provide it back to the user based on their queries. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a message group. So in the message group, I'm going to add a trigger condition. Now let's say for example, here I have a trigger condition called ask joke. So when user says something which triggers this ask joke, what should I do in that case? So I add a trigger condition when the intent that is reached is ask joke, what I wanted to do. So when that particular intent is reached, I'm going to send a message, and these are the different types of messages that I can send back to the user. Just give him a plain text, or if he's requesting for some business information, I could just consolidate that information as a card. I could just provide that information as a card, or if I wanted to do a further query with the customer, like based on some actions, whether you wanted to proceed with this or whether you wanted to proceed with this, I could just use this buttons or quick replies. So you can basically see like one of these 7 options that is available with which you can respond back to the user. So I'm just going to click on this text, and when the user is going to derive to an intent which is going to ask a joke, I'm just going to respond back with some of the jokes. So I just opened a web page where there are some jokes. I just going to copy paste them. So I say that when this particular intent is derived, just give this answer. So I'm going to add more answers to it. So when user asks something and when that is going to derive an intent as this particular skill is going to be triggered, and in this particular skill I have triggered this created this action that when the user asks for a joke, you just give one of these replies. So basically each and everything is defined in an or condition over here. So it's going to randomly pick one of the jokes and it is going to give it back to the end user. Now I'm going to add more message groups. So this is when the user is happy with the so this is when the user is going to ask for a joke. So now I'm going to add a message group where this message group is going to trigger on a condition when the user is happy with the joke, he express something that derived to the laugh intent. So in that particular case, what should I send back to the user? So let's say I'll just go ahead and get some GIF images. Okay, so let's say when the user is happy with the joke, if you say something, then the chatbot is going to reply back with this particular GIF image. So I'm just going to copy the address of it. So when the user is going to arrive to an intent which is love, I'm just basically going to add a message which is going to contain an image. So I just paste the image URL here and I just click on save. So if user comes to conclusion where he's going to derive to this love, I'm just going to save back with this um, GIF image. And similarly, I'm going to go ahead and create an action for my lame skills. So I add a new message group. When user says something that comes to this particular lame skill, I just go ahead and send a message. I'll just say a text message saying that, sorry, I will send an another joke. Okay, so now what I did is I have created a skill which will be triggered when any one of this particular intent has been reached, whether user asks for a joke or if he is happy about it or if he is unhappy about it. So accordingly, I have defined my actions. When user asks for a joke, what are the different possible replies that I could give to him? And when the user is happy about it, what is the reply that I'm going to give? You can just basically go and add as many as reply that you want. And if the user is unhappy about it, then what is the reply that I'm going to give with any further actions or something like that. So we have created our own skills. Then the next step would be to do the coding. So we are not going to use any of it. We are just going to directly have test the functionality which is readily available. We are not fetching any business data or something like that. We are just giving a straightforward questions and replies. So now we will just build our chatbot and we will just test it. So we go to the connect section and these are the different user channels that are available where our chatbot can be deployed. So you could basically use one of these different chatbots. So when you are at SAP, ideally what you would be using is that you would be using this SAP Copilot. So SAP Copilot is also a kind of a chatbot with which you could communicate with the Copilot in order to tell the Copilot that you create me a sales order document or you check the invoice and tell me what the details. So it's going to basically deal more with the business related information. So when you're at SAP, you would basically go ahead and integrate it with this SAP Copilot, or you can also just build a chatbot which integrates with any of this user communication channels. So some of them are free, some of them you need a user account with an API access key and a license. So I'm just go ahead and I'm going to deploy my chatbot in this particular web chat. So I'm going to deploy my chatbot that I have created here in this particular channel. So I'll just let the color scheme be as it is. Header customization. I'm just going to say the header customization as my joke bot or joke bot. So I am not going to modify any of these things. Then I'm just going to name it as joke bot. And then you just click on create, and this particular user channel, based on the information that you have provided, it's going to create a chatbot, and it is going to be um, provided back to you as a script. So in whichever the web application that you wanted to embed this particular chatbot, you can just go ahead and include the script inside that particular web application, and this chatbot should be available for you there in that particular application. So I'm going to pause this screen sharing, and I'm going to add this to my website. Okay, so I just added the script that was given by this user channel into my website, and I'm just reloading my website, and you could see that in the bottom corner you could see a chatbot is available for me. So you just click on this chatbot. So this is nothing but the joke bot that we have just created now. Now let's say, for example, I'm just going to say a hi. So now it will identify the intent as greeting, and play back. Okay, so something is wrong with the bot. Maybe it's because it's not public. So let me have a look. So I have replaced the script logic in my website with one of the chatbot that was previously built and set the visibility to public. So I have just opened this chatbot, and let's say, for example, I'm going to say hi, and now this is going to reply back with one of the intent that matches in the greeting skills. If I say, like, say, for example, bye, then it's going to identify the goodbye intent from the greeting skills. So now if I say, like, tell me a joke, this is going to identify the intent ask joke, and in that we have defined a skill where we have just when the ask joke intent has been triggered, what is the action? We just wanted to send one of the joke as a reply, so it just send the text as a reply. So now let's say, for example, I appreciate that, and I'm just going to say awesome, and the chatbot reply with the gif match that I have provided. And then if I say, like, tell me another joke, the chatbot, it came up with another joke, and let's say, for example, I didn't like it, and I just say bad. So the skill not match up correctly. So there are a lot of things that you have to go through. You just have to identify the user keywords, define the skill accordingly, what should be the exact match to it. So you can just evaluate all of them here in the chatbot. Just go to the monitor section, and it basically keeps track of the data that the user just provides you. So you just say, like, when it is bad, what is the greeting that is derived. Then you need to redefine your skill. So bad, it's definitely not a greeting. So you just have to go and understand, like, if you're going to say bad, why it is triggering a greeting. So in the JSON view, you could find the information, like, it has identified the close match as 0.55, and that's the reason why there is no other things, which is why it just come to a conclusion that this is a greetings. So you just have to uh, go through a lot of expressions, lot of different intents, make sure that the current intent is matched, so that the current skill is triggered and the correct response is being send back to the end user. So this is going to be an evolving process where you just have to basically give millions of data so that you build an AI which is capable of responding to your user queries, the information that it's going to need. So the more I learn about this chatbot, I will prepare a video tutorial and post the same. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. Have a nice day.